So the song that I decided to do for my project is Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst by Kendrick Lamar. It was released on October 22nd, 2012, and it was recorded in 2012. Its genre is hip-hop and rap, especially West Coast rap. The length is 12 minutes and 3 seconds. The label is Top Dog Entertainment. The writers are Kendrick Lamar Duckworth, Gabriel Stevenson, Derek Hutchinson, Quincy Jones, Alan Bergman, and Muriel Bergman. So a little bit about Kendrick Lamar. He is under the name K-Dot in his earlier days. He was born in Compton, California on June 17, 1987. After writing stories as a child, he put to music some lyrics about the rough Compton streets he grew up on. He rapped under the name K-Dot, as I said, releasing a series of increasingly popular mixtapes, which brought him to the attention of a hip-hop superstar producer, Dr. Dre. So his debut album was Good Kid, Mad City, which was released to great acclaim and impressive sales for an up-and-coming recording artist. He continued to receive an array of accolades from his 2015 Grammy-winning album, To Pimp a Butterfly. He first gained major attention after the release of his 2010 mixtape, Overly Dedicated. In 2011, his album, Section 80, released exclusively through iTunes, instantly ranked as the top digital hip-hop releases of the year. In 2012, he crossed over to mainstream audiences with his major label debut album, Good Kid, Mad City, which was widely regarded as an instant classic. In 2015, he dropped To Pimp a Butterfly to widespread acclaim. The following year, Untitled Unmastered was dropped by surprise. Known for his storytelling, imagery, wordplay, and varied song structures, Kendrick brings hard-hitting lyricism with narratives to the West Coast not traditionally known for his lyricists. Lamar is a member of the hip-hop collective Black Hippie, along with J-Rock, Schoolboy Q, and Ab-Soul, all which are a part of TDE. He is also signed to Dr. Dre's Aftermath Entertainment imprint label under Interscope Records. So now I'm going to talk about the verses and about the lyrics, about the instrumentals, and different parts that I feel that need to be pointed out. So in Sing About Me, Dying of Thirst, Kendrick takes on the perspective of two people he knows, one positive and one negative. Then he offers his own perspective, so he tells a story not to offend anyone, but to really be realistic, and he hopes that the story will continue to be told. So storytelling can bring an eternity to stories that counteracts the nature of life. So the instrumental encapsulates the emotion of the song, utilizing the laid-back drum beat, but punctuated by the moving guitar riff. So, looking at the timestamp, at 14 seconds, the lyrics, when the lights shut off and it's my turn to settle down, my main concern, promise that you will sing about me. To me, these lines present the main concept of the song, which is death and being remembered after one's demise. It also sets the mood of the song with the text painting, the slow beat. It really translates to sadness and death. So as we look into the first verse, Kendrick steps into the shoes of Dave's brother. Sometime after Dave's death, David's brother believes the blood is on K-Dot's hands as they were retaliating based on the incident that happened to Kendrick. But he appreciates Kendrick for being there for Dave and holding him in his arms while he was dying. Dave vents about the pain he feels from his brother's murder and living with the madness that is Compton, California. And he questions Kendrick's dreams of making it out of the ghetto. He then describes his feelings of revenge as being a demon inside of him, which not only causes his community to not give a fuck, but also explains Dave's apparent decision not to duck when he's being shot at. He questions the senseless fighting between Bloods and Crips, but can't escape it because it's part of who he is, and it's really all he knows. Dave's brother wonders if he will ever be as passionate, and sometimes, he refers to Kendrick in his music and explains that people like him never succeed. But he wishes Kendrick the best in his career, and he hopes that he will tell his story when he becomes famous in order to keep his name alive, so kids can learn from his mistakes. So looking at the 42-second mark, the mood of the music corresponds to the lyrics. I'm hoping that I can borrow a peace of mind. I'm behind on what's really important. My mind is really distorted. I find nothing but trouble in my life. The homophone here, they correlate because he talks about peace and peace, like Piece, and peace as Peace. So when he talks about borrow a peace of mind, it's a double entendre. So peace of mind is an expression defined as the absence of mental stress or anxiety, and a peace of mind refers to Kendrick's rational, smart decisions and evaluations. Thus, he sets a tone. At the 158 mark, the lyrics, "And if I die before your album drop, I hope," and then gunshots are interrupt the line. The fact that he is murdered mid-sentence signifies that he was killed before he was able to give all he had. And here we see the rhythm just stop abruptly and the flow is completely gone. And at 2 minutes and 3 seconds, here he starts to sing the hook, and this is where the beat changes. He has an uplifting tone, not present in the verse, that marked the translation from the verse to the hook. So it's more uplifting and has more ambient sound in the background, which changes up the beat. So now looking at the second verse, it's from the perspective of Keisha's sister, which Keisha is being the molested victim turned prostitute turned homicide victim, depicted in his other album, Section 80. So what she does here is she condemns Kendrick for putting her sister on blast without knowing her that well. So she proudly claims to be continuing in her sister's path of prostitution in order to survive. She claims that her sister died in vain, but questions Kendrick's judgments, arguing that Kendrick doesn't know what it's like to be her, and thus doesn't have the right to criticize her decisions. So she believes the system, her childhood is in foster homes, and her abusive parents who taught her that children should be beaten in order to knock sense into. Unlike David's brother, Keisha's sister does not want to be mentioned in Kendrick's album, as she gets enough tension on her own being a prostitute. She claims she doesn't need a doctor's approval to know that she is really healthy and believe that she will most likely live longer than Kendrick. Pointing out some specifics, at the 2 minute 44 second mark, the lyrics, "Gonzales Park, I'm followed by a merry man, father of three, my titties bounce on the cadence of his tingling keys." So here, the mood of the music corresponds as K-Dot paints a picture of the harsh, unfortunate reality for many young girls who grow up where Kendrick came from in tough cities across the country. So there, he really paints a picture about how prostitution is a problem in Compton and how that relates to his life. So at the 3 minute 23 second mark, the lyrics, "And I'm exhausted, but fuck that, sorry for your lost shit. My sister died in vain, but what point are you trying to gain? And if you can't fit the pumps I walk in, I'll wait." This line also marks a dramatic change in Keisha's sister's tone as she goes from sounding weak and vulnerable to sounding angry and strong. It also changes the rhythm as he actually waits a few seconds when he says, "I'll wait," and then speaks again. So, moving to verse 3, Kendrick speaks from his own perspective, dealing with his infatuation with death. He wonders if he is afraid of death, and hopes that if he dies today, will he find a soul in heaven? And he says his imagination is an aggravation of threats that come about because the tongue is mighty powerful, meaning the crazy thoughts that come into his head are based on his fear and the perceived threats he sees in the world. He claims that some of the listeners' favorite rappers, so some of his rappers can vouch for this, meaning they see Kendrick as a threat, by saying, "Maybe because I'm a dreamer and sleep is the cousin of death." Those lyrics, he is telling his listeners that he became what he is today because he has a very optimistic vision about the future and he never gave up on it. But he simultaneously preaches to his listeners to not sleep your life away and instead act on your talents and passions. Kendrick then speaks on the voices in the previous verse. He agrees with Dave's brother. And he feels like Dave is a brother to him as well. He explains to Keisha's sister that Keisha tragically put Kendrick in a position to speak on real life issues that could help his listeners in their life endeavors, but he apologizes for intruding on her personal life. He argues that if he hadn't wrote Keisha's song, he'd be doing a disservice to future generations of lost females instead of guidance. He adds that if he quit rapping in general in favor of a resolve around money, power, and drugs, he would also be doing a disservice to himself as well. He ends his verse by asking his listeners if he put enough work into his music. So, looking at that, at the 4-minute, 29-second mark, the lyrics, "Sometimes I look in the mirror and ask myself, am I really scared of passing away?" Here, I think he brings up the recurring motif of death that is stressed throughout the song, considering he talks about the death of Dave's brother and the death of Keisha's sister. And also at 5-minute 50-second mark, he goes on to say, "Am I worth it? Did I put enough work in?" What I see here is that the beat changes as Kendrick raps about this question. The beating of the drums has stopped, and the ambient sound makes the listener reflect on the question he is asking. That was one thing I saw and pointed out. So at the 6-minute 20-second mark, after the verse ends, the chorus repeats in the bridge, "Promise that you'll sing about me forever," fades out. Here again, the beat slows down, and we have a change in voice as her name is in abbreviations. It's JMSN, features here with uncredited vocals as she adds a new melody that is peaceful. So then we see at the 7-minute mark, the horrifying story of Kendrick and his friends continues. But what changes here is the melody fades and the skit comes in as the story picks up after Dave is murdered, and they are left searching for answers and wondering what to do next. They contemplate whether to run home. Dave's brother pleads in anguish, being tired of running, still in utter disbelief of his brother's death. Here, what we see is at the 7-minute 30-second mark, the beat changes in the 4th verse from a mood that's more melancholy to more severe, strict mood. I think that has to deal with Kendrick's perspective of life, and with a more, and then this has a more upbeat rhythm, and singing in the background changes the mood of the song also. So we have a completely different beat here that's more upbeat, and I think has a stronger tone and has a stronger prevalence than the previous beat. So in the 4th verse, Kendrick continues Dave's newfound questioning of his life by declaring his exhaustion from running and hunting his own kind, but will never retire from the senseless violence. He then details the death of the coroner's daughter, which was broadcasted all over the news. But Kendrick finds it difficult to feel sorry for the coroner because he knows he's crooked. This is symbolizing murders that occur in his community as mostly happening to those who have committed atrocities themselves and are thus hard to feel sorry for. I believe the theme of the verse through is Kendrick and his community's unquenched thirst for religion and God. I believe that his community and Kendrick himself are struggling, and I feel like he compares himself to Trey when he references the Boys in the Hood for similarly questioning and turning back on his gang lifestyle as Trey did in Boys in the Hood. He says in his verse, "Dreams of balling like Spalding, but only shoddy bounce." Meaning the males in his community want to play in the NBA, but one only actually make it, and instead of more likely to feel the bounce of a shotgun bullet because they turn to violence. So he's comparing that they want to play in the NBA, but only so many, if not only one, will make it, and then they turn to gang lifestyle and violence. So they're also driven by the crave for women and weed. Kendrick says that this lifestyle is exactly how you die of thirst. So in there he references that. Kendrick goes on to claim that that dedicating your life to God will set you free and will allow you to die gracefully in the rapture, theoretically, that occurs tomorrow. So he's referencing the Bible here in that verse. So some specifics to point out. At the 8-minute and 10-second mark, the lyrics, "I know I'm good at dying of thirst, dying of thirst, dying of thirst." This points out the recurring theme of violence and how the cycle of being in a gang is the only thing that he knows. So at the 8-minute 27-second mark, "Money is power, money is power." This is also another recurring theme of money and how relating to power and the dream of obtaining wealth is very prevalent in cities like Compton, where Kendrick is from. So here he points that out. So here we have the 9-minute 55-second mark. You dying of thirst, you dying of thirst. So hop in that water and pray that it works. This is a recurring motif about religion and the struggle Kendrick has with finding God and hoping he forgives him for his sins. So lastly, the thing I want to point out is the skit at the end at the 10-minute 18-second mark. We see changes in rhythm and mood as the song stops abruptly and changes over the skit. So Kendrick and his friends continuing to vent in anguish over Dave's death. So a religious woman approaches them in shock at the sight of the gun in their hands. So what she does is she rhetorically asks them why young men are so angry. Then she tells them they are dying of thirst and are in need of holy water and baptism in the Spirit of the Lord. The song concludes with a prayer symbolizing the start of Kendrick and his friends' new real life centered at the service of God. So throughout this song, Kendrick is explaining his struggle with religion and the troubles within his community. And the beats throughout the song change, and there's a lot of different dynamics that go into this. The instruments of the drum and the piano and the violin really come together to, I think, make listeners reflect on what he's trying to say. And his lyrics here tell a story. So overall, the song is very good, and it plays a lot with different motifs, and he references that throughout throughout the whole song.